So our next speaker, well, I don't think he needs any introduction, but I am going to introduce him just in case. Alan Schwartz is the President of Philanthropy Australia's Council, and he has led the refreshment of our strategy, our approach, our membership offer, our business model, in consultation with our members and supported by the whole of Council and the PA team. He's the Managing Director of the Trawalla Group and has extensive experience in the non-profit and for-purpose community sector. He's a council member at Swinburne University of Technology, and he contributed to the creation of Jewish Care through the merger of Jewish Community Services and Montefiore Homes. He's also, though, an entrepreneur, a tech developer, a property developer, a business leader, a tree fanatic, and a baker. So essentially the best of all worlds. Please would you welcome Alan. He's going to give us a deeper insight, not just into himself, but into his latest thinking and the challenge that will take philanthropy to a whole new paradigm. Alan.
Thanks, Sarah. As always, with respect and sincerity, I wish to add my acknowledgement to the traditional owners of the land, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. What a fabulous 2 days we've shared, hearing and learning from each other about our efforts to make the world a better place. I feel very fortunate to be part of a community that seeks to reverse injustice and disadvantage and to preserve the Earth's bounty. But what we're doing is not enough. As a philanthropist and an impact investor, it is a difficult thing for me to admit, but I've recently come to believe that no matter how much good our sector does in the world, it will never be enough. This is because the moral, social and economic foundations of our society, principally of our economy, are fundamentally broken. Our economy still works under the assumption that Adam Smith's invisible hand will ensure that self-interested pursuit of profit will simultaneously promote the common good. And there's no doubt that Smith's economic vision has indeed enabled us to pursue profits and the common good simultaneously. But it has also contributed to critical environmental degradation, to serious social disadvantage, to epidemics of obesity, anxiety and depression, and produced staggering inequalities of wealth and privilege. This is because, for all his genius, Adam Smith failed to properly account for two key things. The first is the planet's finite resources, and the other is the neglect of the importance of externalities. In Smith's time, the world's population was less than 1 billion souls. There were still vast tracts of land, air and ocean that had yet to be exploited by human enterprise. There was a perception that whatever we could extract, nature could replenish, as it had done for centuries. We now know only too well how misguided that picture of nature was, and the urgent need for us to better manage the fragile ecosystem that sustains us. Smith's other oversight was to neglect the importance of externalities. We know that some activities cause side effects, some positive, some negative, and we know that when they're unaccounted for, we tend to underproduce positive externalities and overproduce negative externalities. And so we get tobacco or fossil fuel companies that reap tremendous profits, but only because they're not required to pay for the harm they cause to health and the environment. Meanwhile, organisations that work to improve literacy amongst disadvantaged youth or that strive to preserve biodiversity struggle to attract funding because they're unable to capture the value they've created. I firmly believe that unless we can fix this structural flaw in economics, we will forever be working against the system rather than making the system work for us. So, I'm going to talk today about rewriting economics. Not because I think it'll be easy to do, but because I think if we want to have a healthier, more sustainable, more equitable and just world, we simply have no choice. Now, there are generally three radical responses of fixing our broken economic system that I'm aware of. The first is business as usual. Even though this is the default stance, I still call it radical because I think we all agree that if we continue on our current economic path, we're going to drive off a cliff. Even tinkering at the edges, like regulating carbon emissions or increasing government spending on public goods like health and education, is not going to be enough. The problem with this approach is that it relies on governments and philanthropists who work without the benefit of the market. In fact, it requires them to work against market forces. So this is not my approach. The second radical response is to abandon the market altogether and move to some kind of centrally planned economy. I don't think I have to say much to convince you that this path has been tried and has been found to be wanting. So this is not my approach. But there is a third radical response, which is to double down on the market and seek to internalise the externalities and use the power and efficiency of the market itself to promote the common good. After many years of reflection and soul-searching and a full year of research and consultation, this has become my approach. It might sound like a big task to rewrite economics to factor in externalities, but it's actually simpler than you might think. It all comes down to measurement. Currently, the overwhelming majority of business focus on generating financial profit because that's the only sort of profit they can accurately measure. They carefully account for their financial assets, income, expenses, debt, stock, and they arrive at a number that tells them whether they're doing well or whether they're doing poorly. But this profit figure doesn't actually tell us or them the full story. Profit tracks movements in financial capital, but it's not tracking movements in natural or social value. But if we can reform this narrow conception of profit and expand it to include movements in social and natural capital, we can change the very goals that businesses pursue such that financial success equates to producing genuine value. This means we need to stop thinking about social and natural impacts as externalities and start thinking about them for what they really are, forms of capital that are no less important than financial capital. An economy that depletes its natural capital is doomed to starve itself dry, and one that ignores the value of social capital has lost its focus on who the economy is supposed to serve. So we need to place value not only on financial capital, but also on social capital such as health, literacy, and the cohesion of our communities, and natural capital such as the quality of our water, air, and soil. To repeat, because this is critical, profit must include improvements and degradations in literacy and the health of our communities, and it must embrace and account for changes in the state of the environment. We need an economic system in which financial, social, and natural capital sit alongside each other on equal terms, so that profit, being aligned with value, is no longer a dirty word, so that Smith's invisible hand can steer the economy towards producing what we genuinely value and do so sustainably, generation after generation. I've come to the conclusion that this alternative definition of profit is not only possible but necessary if we are to achieve justice for individuals and communities and sustainability for our planet. And today, I'm going to tell you how we can make this happen. I'm sure that at this point, you might be thinking, who is this guy? What is he talking about? I think I would be if I was in your position. I confess that I'm not someone who's particularly comfortable with hyperbole, and even less comfortable sharing my personal story. But many of you probably don't know much about me, beyond my roles as President of Philanthropy Australia, or Managing Director of the Trawalla Group, or perhaps who I'm married to, or who I'm related to. I'm the middle son of Holocaust survivors. Their pain and their loss and their sense of injustice and betrayal were wordlessly transmitted to me in my mother's womb, post-war, Lamarckian style. Like a dark and silent cloud, the horrors of my parents' experiences haunted my childhood and adolescence. What was their answer to this unspeakable injustice and cruelty? They chose hope and they chose life. We rebuilt our lives and our communities, and when we had healed ourselves, we re-engaged with the broader world, committed to values of justice and fairness. These few words define me and all that I am and all that I have become. I hope that I was a dutiful son, a diligent student, a loving and caring husband and father, a hard-working businessman, and to my great surprise, later in life, a community leader. But there was, and there is, the dark side, the scarred side, the iconoclast, an atheist by the time I was 10, the troublemaker, almost expelled from school for running the books for the Melbourne Cup, the opportunist, the author of an economics textbook written over the summer break after finishing high school, helping students beat the system, the rebel practicing my newfound legal knowledge by challenging and defeating Monash University over their illegal car parking regulations, always happy to give authority a poke in the eye. The outsider, always observing, always moving on. The distruster of authority, how many examples do you want? And of course, the skeptic with a small dose of cynic, never willing to accept anything just because someone says it or writes it. And there is the curious side, the intellectual side, and the eternally optimistic, adventurous, almost reckless side. I went on to complete my legal studies and my articles, but having set up a conference business on the side and earning many times the salary I earned as an article clerk, I retired from law literally 15 minutes after being admitted to practice. And then I started growing up. I met and married Carol, and together we raised 4 magnificent children. I built, acquired and sold businesses over a period of 30 years before transitioning to become what I now call an active investor. Throughout the journey, I was dipping in and out of business and philanthropy and community, soaking up the good and the bad in each of those realms. 14 years ago, Carol and I established the Trawalla Foundation. Now I was a fully fledged philanthropist and impact investor, sitting at the intersection of the not-for-profit sector and its for-profit counterpart. The more I saw, the more I learned, the more I asked, the less I understood. I began to lose my bearings. How could companies be allowed to make profits at the expense of society and the environment? Why are extraordinary not-for-profits chronically underfunded? Why don't people have respect for honest businesses? Why am I so uncomfortable with impact investing? Something was cooking. I had a growing sense of foreboding, a feeling of dread about what can happen in the world when there is injustice and when people start losing faith in their institutions and start looking for scapegoats. So when the Harvard Club asked me to speak at their not-for-profit award ceremony about a year ago, I unleashed. The title of the speech was "What's Wrong with Profit?" and it was deliberately provocative. It defended profit, honestly gained, and condemned profit earned at the expense of people and the environment. It praised efficient not-for-profits and criticised those who wasted government and philanthropic funding. It welcomed the promising new world of impact investing and social enterprise while despairing its lack of scale and the scope for really bad practices. It was a provocation, to be sure, but I had no idea what I was getting myself in for. Having formulated the problem and having described the solution and even giving it a name, I felt compelled to work out if it was a mere flight of fancy or something that could become a reality in the world. Over the course of the past year, my obsession has deepened. I read dozens of books and academic articles and have met some of the most brilliant minds on the planet. I owe a huge debt to the scientists, economists, technologists and philosophers who have helped me develop the ideas that underpin today's speech. Dr. William Fisher, who taught me that good quality measurement of social and natural capital is not only possible but has the capacity to change the world. And Stevens, who convinced me that if I wanted to bring externalities into the market, blockchain technology was both necessary and sufficient. Dr. Simon Longstaff, who came up with the concept of the universal commons, and dozens of other friends, associates and complete strangers who have provided hugely useful feedback and encouragement. And with their insights and guidance, here is the solution I propose. It's the Universal Commons Project. The goal is to bring social and natural capital into the market so that economic activity is steered towards producing genuine value for humanity and the planet. It all starts with measurement, which is both the linchpin and the weakest link of the Universal Commons Project. One reason that movements in social and natural capital aren't currently accounted for is that many people think it's impossible or undesirable to measure them effectively. I disagree. For the last 9 months, I've immersed myself in the history, science and epistemology of measurement. Yes, I never knew what epistemology meant. And spoken to the top luminaries in the field. I will spare you the details, although I'd love to share them, and simply tell you what you need to know. There is an emerging consensus among scientists and philosophers that measurement of social and natural capital is not fundamentally different in principle to measurement of physical things like temperature and air pressure. Creating scientifically sound and universally accepted measures for literacy, health, clean water will be a long and hard road, but it's not impossible. In fact, there are already many metrics that seek to quantify social impact or the condition of the natural world today. However, they're based on a diverse range of methodologies with varying degrees of rigour and accuracy, and very few of them are compatible with each other. What we need to do is have a common measurement framework that can bring all these metrics under one methodological umbrella. The goal is to produce a system of metrics that even an accountant would approve of. So to this end, I'm very excited to say that my team and I are soon to announce a challenge prize that will offer a substantial cash prize for the individual or team that can produce a framework for measuring movements in social and natural capital. I'll come back to that. Now, while you're thinking about measurement, I'll have a sip and I'll add a few caveats. We're not seeking to measure, and this is really important, we're not seeking to measure the financial value of a tree or a human life. We agree that this is not only impossible but undesirable. Rather, we're looking to measure whether water quality is going up or down, whether ecosystems are healthy or degraded, whether mineral stocks are abundant or depleted. We will then let the market set the relative value of these things using a mechanism I will describe in a moment. So we're not seeking to measure things like happiness or subjective well-being. Rather, we'll be measuring things that we believe reliably contribute to such things like health, education, a lack of crime, or social cohesion. In order to bring social and natural capital into the market, we will need not only measurement, but also a functioning and efficient marketplace. To that end, my team is developing a specialised exchange that will allow organisations to interact with and trade in social and natural capital. We call it the Universal Commons Exchange. It will be built using the latest distributed ledger technology, which you would know as blockchain, meaning that it is fully distributed, decentralised, transparent and secure, thereby ensuring trust and integrity. Blockchain technology is unique in its ability to provide what a market needs, which is incentives and controls that they are necessary for the creation and management of a new market for social and natural capital. Very importantly, in ways that the current economic system is simply not able to do. So that when organisations improve something like literacy or water quality, they will receive tokens that represent their positive impact, and those tokens can be bought and sold by people who want to invest in literacy and water, like you. If you're technically minded and or sceptical about the latest technology being paraded as the universal panacea, there is a 45-page functional architecture document on our website that you can read at your leisure. Please read it. I'll give you the URL later. Now, once we have good measurement and an effective market for social and natural capital, who will care about these measurements and who will use the new marketplace? The first to use it will be social and impact investors who are seeking to objectively measure the extent to which they're preserving and enhancing social and natural capital. The Universal Commons Exchange will also help them improve the efficiency of their social expenditure and their grant making. However, social and impact investors, as we know, sadly, are only a small proportion of all investors. They are vastly outnumbered by financial investors, those who seek a purely financial return. The grand challenge will be to encourage financial investors and the corporations they invest in to participate in the Universal Commons Exchange. How can we do this? First of all, we hope to engage with corporations who, despite the lack of financial incentives to do so, genuinely care about their social and environmental impact. This includes B Corps and those who have already signed up to the Global Reporting Initiative and the International Integrated Reporting Council, and so on and so forth. Many other financial investors will also find it's in their self-interest to engage with, it's in their self-interest, financial self-interest, to engage with the Universal Commons Exchange. There could be great financial profits to be made in improving literacy, health, or in cleaning our waterways and our air. I'm just asking you to accept that for the moment. We can get back to it, we can discuss it potentially in question time, but that is the weirdest thing of all. The idea that you can convert social and natural capital into capital classes that can be invested in by private businesses for profit to their shareholders. Now think about that, and we'll come back to it. Because that is one of my most outrageous assertions this morning, or this afternoon. Then, for those financial investors who are holding out, perhaps because they fear being held to account for the impact they're having on people and the planet, we will turn to a combination of community and political pressure. This stage, sadly, will be many years away yet. First, we have to build the measurement framework and demonstrate the efficacy of the Universal Commons Exchange. By then, we hope we will have generated enough credibility, goodwill and momentum so that the recalcitrants will be motivated to hop on board. But this is not the end of the Universal Commons project. In fact, I haven't even explained the significance of the word Universal Commons. I haven't even explained the significance of the name Universal Commons yet, which is based on a brilliant idea by the brilliant Dr. Simon Longstaff. The Universal Commons is perhaps the most radical part of the project, but it's also the one that will restore justice to our economic system. My parents and their family suffered simply due to their race and religion and their place of birth. We can all see the injustice of this. It is precisely the same injustice that allows those in this room to live comfortable lives while those who are born in the wrong place, to the wrong parents, in the wrong country experience hunger, poverty and hardship. The Universal Commons seeks to redress this injustice and to create a new moral, social and economic system that is both just and efficient. If you think about it, the world's bounty of social and natural resources belongs to no one. They reside in the commons. So actually, they belong to everyone. And yet, we've created an economic system that gives its blessing to businesses that consume or degrade some aspect of the commons for the private gain of their shareholders. This makes sense. So the Universal Commons will claim all the Earth's social and natural capital on behalf of every living person. It will then issue a single equal share that is indivisible and unsaleable to every living human on the planet. Then, any organisation or corporation that interact with these forms of capital will be required to lease them from the Universal Commons Exchange and return them after use in an undegraded condition. Their profit would be the value that they actually create over and above the leasing fee and the cost of preserving social and natural capital that they use in the process of creating profit. And a portion of that leasing fee will be divided equally amongst all the Universal Commons shareholders, creating an important source of income for every living person. This becomes an effective universal income, one that is based on each living person's moral right to benefit from the commons that belongs to them. I acknowledge that all of this seems far-fetched, but is it impossible? There was a time when elimination of slavery seemed beyond reach. At the time, some said that abolishing slavery would be too costly to the economy. But we did abolish slavery, and instead of destroying the economy, it helped unlock its potential by allowing people, that is slaves, to be both producers and consumers. Unthinkable to the American South at the time, but that's what happened. If we can eradicate slavery, surely we can redesign our free enterprise system so that it enables all of us to profit by preserving and enhancing our real wealth, our stock of social and natural capital. Now, I hasten to add that this has been a lightning tour through the Universal Commons project. There are countless important details that I've left out, and I don't doubt that you have many questions. For those of you who are detail-orientated, there is another 45-page document on our website that explains how the Universal Commons would be established and operated. Now I'm almost done and wish to return very briefly to measurement again for two reasons. Firstly, without high-quality measurement, none of any of this can be achieved. Secondly, although the vision of the Universal Commons is grand, there are things we can do right now to advance the cause of economic efficiency and justice. And that is what we're doing. Next year, we'll be launching a challenge prize to develop a measurement framework for the Universal Commons. We're working with Nesta, the world-renowned social innovation think tank based in the UK. The prize will be open for submission from any person or organisation anywhere in the world. The winner will receive a very substantial cash prize and the satisfaction of unleashing a tsunami of innovation and progress. The exact specifications of the prize are currently being refined. We'll be publishing updates on our website later this year. If you're interested in hearing more about the Universal Commons project as it unfolds, please sign up on the website for occasional updates. We need your help to spread the word about the Universal Commons Measurement Prize. What I'm proposing is a natural evolution of economics whose time has come. We are proposing a simple fix that is nothing short of radical. It will fundamentally change the way every not-for-profit and every for-profit organisation operates. It will fundamentally change the way we measure national progress to better align with what really matters. It will fundamentally change the way we preserve and share the Earth's bounty. This is why fixing the flaw in economics is both surprisingly simple and yet incredibly challenging, and yet it must be done. Do we have a choice? As for me, the promise of the Universal Commons is so tantalising, so challenging, so exciting, so important that I don't have a choice. But we need all the help we can get. We need moral support, we need brains, we need money, we need connections. Please contact me directly if you want to help, or at least visit our website, universalcommons.com, and sign up for occasional updates, and please spread the word about the Universal Commons Measurement Prize. Thank you. Okay.